Hello and welcome to the big picture. The developments in the last few weeks in Tamil Nadu, where the rhetoric against the Sri Lankan government reached a crescendo with the attack on Sri Lankan pilgrims to India, has sharply brought back into focus the uncertainty which prevails in the relations between India and Sri Lanka. The Tamil Nadu's political parties, which have always indulged in one-upmanship over the Sri Lankan Tamil issue, have virtually set the agenda for the Indian government as far as the island nation is concerned. However, the attacks on the Sinhalese pilgrims witnessed a couple of days back and the decision of the Tamil Nadu government to send back football teams are unprecedented. The opposition to the training of Sri Lankan military in Tamil Nadu, leading to the shifting of the training camp to near Bangalore, has also added to the souring of relations. The Indian government, which seems to allow the Tamil Nadu parties to hold the relations between the two countries to ransom, has not helped matters. Today, we will discuss the implications of the recent developments in Tamil Nadu against the Sinhalese while asking the question, has the Indo-Sri Lankan relations become Tamil-centric, and also see how the relations can improve. To discuss this, I have with me today Thol Valavan, Lok Sabha MP from the Viduthalai Chirutaigal Kachi, Vasanthi Stanley, DMK Rajya Sabha MP, Professor S.D. Muni, Senior Visiting Scholar at the Institute for Defence Studies and Analysis. And we will be joined soon by Pramit Choudhuri, Foreign Editor of the Hindustan Times. Welcome to all of you. Let me first go to Professor Muni. Professor Muni?
Yes.
You know, whenever we talk of the Indo-Sri Lankan relations, it seems to be through the prism of Tamil Nadu. Is this how the relations has been always?
No, I think Tamil Nadu is a big factor, but it would be wrong to say that it's entirely based on that factor. There are other very important dimensions to Indo-Sri Lankan relations.
Right.
One is the strategic location of Sri Lanka, which
Right.
is very vital to us. Second is the economic investments and trade relations, which since 1998 have grown very, very significantly between India and Sri Lanka, and a lot of Indian investments is already there. So that is equally important. And now with the Indian Ocean, is strategically churning up.
Right.
And the Chinese seeking access, including in Sri Lanka, I think it has added to both India's concerns, worries, and involvement.
Right, but see, what we see is that whenever the Tamil parties, the whichever party, all the political parties in Tamil Nadu, as I said in my introduction, there is a game of one-upmanship there, and Sri Lankan Tamils issue is the basic issue which they keep bringing it up. I am not at all saying that it is not an important issue, but it is evident that the Tamil Nadu political parties set the agenda for the central government.
Well, it's not setting the agenda, but on occasions you are right, because the ethnic situation in Sri Lanka has been very, very tense, and it emotionally upsets many of the Tamils in Tamil Nadu. In addition to that, the recent question of fishermen
Right.
related to Kachathivu and others have also increased.
Right.
And the last one was 2009, the way the war against the LTT was wound up. Many people have questions about the human rights and a kind of a ruthless massacre which was carried out there.
Absolutely.
So I think the emotions are quite stirred up, but I would not think that they set the entire agenda. Yes, it is a major part of agenda, you are absolutely right. And the Tamil Nadu internal politics, the state politics, and the competitive issue of harnessing the Tamil sympathies and Tamil support actually complicates the whole matter.
Okay. Mr. Thirumaa it's your party, the latest round of problems which we had in a couple of days back, the pilgrims being sent back, and I've read that your party took played a major role in that. We have not seen this kind of targeting of the Sinhalese in Tamil Nadu before. The first time it's happening. Isn't it very disturbing?
Okay, I agree with your point. It may be against human rights, but why don't we bother about the people are suffering in Sri Lanka? Every day the military doing atrocities against lay people. They are doing rape, they are encroaching lands, they are abducting many youths, women, widowers, like this. This happening is going on every day. We know very well, the world knows very well that Rajapakse done a great massacre in Mullivaikal. More than 40,000 people have murdered, massacred.
No, but
so
no,
we are not bothering about the killings of the people.
I don't
we are bothering about some people are.
We are not. It's not a question of not bothering. I'm sure everybody who is worried about the situation there are bothered about it. There's a lot of discussion on that. But is it a solution to drive away people who come from Sri Lanka
to attract the government attention? We have to attract the attention of the government. The central government not bothering about the feelings and aspirations of the Tamil people, the sentiments of the Tamil people. They are having relations with the Sri Lankan government. Where is the relation in between Indo and Sri Lankan governments? There is no, it is a single-sided love like this. The government of India is saying like that, we are very relative to Sri Lanka, very close to Sri Lanka. But the Sri Lankan government has a relation with Pakistan.
Doesn't reciprocate the same kind of feelings. That's what you're trying to say. Yes, Vasanthi.
See,
Your party's position for the last couple of days was a little different. Now your party chief has come out with a statement saying that sports and cultural ties should not be, he has criticized the ADMK government there.
It is
but
not,
but
is not
by and large,
criticizing the
position
ADMK
of both
government,
of
he
you-
has said that.
Yes.
See, Vidudhalai Chirudhalai Katchi or any other person who is doing all this kind of activities in Tamil Nadu, this is only a sudden fury of the mob. Okay, but the Tamil Nadu is not at all having such a culture. That you should have it in mind. We have never done this.
Exactly. Even in those days when we saw at the height of the Tamil movement and when where different Sri Lankan Tamil parties were based in Sri Lanka, in Tamil Nadu, we have not seen this kind of thing.
So many people from Gujarat, Rajasthan, they have all come, and Bangalore, they all come to Tamil Nadu and we receive them, and even from foreign countries also. But this mob fury, why now? That you have to have it in mind. It is unprecedented, you say. That is the result of the unprecedented way how the Sri Lankan government is behaving. So this is retrospective effect, the effect of that. You are telling that there is a bilateral relationship between these two countries, but what they are doing, they are shaking hands with the Chinese, and as the previous...
I don't think Indian government opposes Sri Lanka having any relations with China or Pakistan or anybody else. How can we dictate to them?
That is from right from our Independence Day, right from Nehruji's day, it is our thing that we will not interfere in other things.
Vasanthi, my question is this. See, the problem is, as I said in my introduction again, there is a element of one-upmanship between the political parties in Tamil Nadu, especially between ADMK and DMK. VCK is a new entrant to this. ADMK and DMK.
One thing from your own introduction, I would like to say, you said this is an unprecedented thing which is happening in Tamil Nadu.
Absolutely.
Because of this unprecedented things which has happened in Sri Lanka, for which they have not yet answered. Now only we are trying to bring this. First, there was people from Elam's father, Selva's time, they were in Ahimsa way, in Gandhian way, they were fighting. Again, in LTT's way, they took the weapons and everything has come to an end. Now, in our leaders' way, which Vidudhalai Chirudhalai has also joined, we want to bring this to the notice of the entire world by this making India making India, I would like to repeat this, by DMK to sign in the Geneva resolution, which was much against Sri Lanka, which would like to bring out the war crimes of Sri Lanka out to the whole world. Now we are raising this issue to the world level. We try to draw the attention of the UNO and the other nations, those who have say the same kind of feeling towards our what has happened.
Okay, let me bring in Pramit.
What has happened is unprecedented in Sri Lanka, and this is the result of it.
So,
and India is
will
not
continue
taking,
to happen in Tamil Nadu.
Yes.
Unprecedented things will
we are
continue
not,
to
We are not justifying it.
You're
We are
not
not just,
justifying
it is,
it.
it is
That's
sudden
okay.
fury
But
only.
you're not justifying
Why
it.
it
We
is
are
happening?
peace-loving
Why it is
people.
happening? The government should think over it.
Yes,
Pramit,
yes. And
you-
one more
you
thing,
think
just one more
yes,
thing I would
quickly.
like to add. Just one more thing I would like to add. You are telling that this is Tamil issue, Tamil issue, Tamil issue. When the fishermen are attacked, when just leave alone the Sri Lankan Tamils, okay? When fishermen are attacked, every time we have to go and plead to the government that they are Tamil fishermen, Tamil fishermen. Why don't you call them as Indian fishermen? Why don't you at least one time think that they are Indian fishermen and take the action?
That's it.
That is why we have to dictate the government. That is why we have
That's
to.
right.
That is why we have to take. That is why we have.
Your point is well taken. Let me get
Whenever
Pramit.
firing
Otherwise,
weapon
there is
from
no need
Pakistan
that we have to
border-
do this.
Only.
We have to.
Whenever firing weapon from Pakistan border, the government of India is retaliating. But whenever firing weapon from Sri Lanka, the government of India is keep quiet.
Okay.
Why-
Pramit,
why this is
you know,
happening?
They are raising very.
Call them
member of
Indian.
parliament.
Call
They
them
were raising-
call them
no,
Indian
let me get
fishermen.
it. Let
Just
me-
once.
No, we'll come back. Let me get in. Pramit, they're raising interesting points, all right, but the issue is that the Indian government essentially takes, note of situations only when things reach such a stage in Tamil Nadu.
Well, let's put it this way. I think there is a fundamental problem, which is that the Rajapaksa government has not fulfilled its own promises on a
Right.
political settlement
Right.
in Tamil Nadu,
Yes.
for the Tamil minority in Sri Lanka, that they had themselves agreed to do, which they have promised to do. The political settlement is nowhere in sight. What they have done is rehabilitation. They have carried out various other programs, some of the rehabilitation, of course, paid for by India. And of course, basically the civil war is over. The fundamental problem, I think, is that the failure to carry out that political settlement, for whatever reason Rajapaksa may not wish to do that or is delaying that, has resulted in the re-injection of Tamil Elam and the Tamil issue into Tamil Nadu politics. Note that Jayalalitha has been long opposed to the LTTE and to Tamil Elam. But in India's vote in the Human Rights Council of the United Nations against Sri Lanka, it was she who pushed the government and forced the government to vote against it.
It was DMK who did it, not Jayalalitha.
The Indian Foreign Office is very
Sorry,
clear.
we
that
did it.
they-
We did
that
it.
they-
We
that
did it.
All the Tamil parties
It's
made the
always-
intervention,
Pramit,
but it was Jayalalitha
Okay.
that the government of India
Okay.
paid attention to.
Pramit,
Okay.
it has always been the case that
because-
whoever is in power, whether it's DMK or ADMK, they take the lead, and their voice is heard.
Yeah.
That's been the situation. When you were in power, the central government would take note of what you said, and now they have to take note of what the government says. Anyway,
But the point was that why did Jayalalitha, of all people, given her long record of opposition,
Absolutely.
is because she fears that this issue was going to return into Tamil Nadu politics because of the Rajapaksa's government's stubbornness in moving forward to the final issue, which was the political settlement. In fact, I met Chandrika Kumartunga a few months ago, and she was complaining. She said, Rajapaksa I don't understand what is his problem. He supported the same political settlement when he was my minister. And then when he comes to power, he takes it and has put it aside. And one of the key questions within the Indian government is to ask, why is Rajapaksa running away from doing the last step of ending the civil war in Sri Lanka?
Pramit, so are you trying to justify, you think the act of the present act in the last few days is justified because of the way the
No,
Sri Lankan
I would say
government
justified
has
in the sense I would disagree with him that I don't think the Indian government is not cognizant of what is happening. Within the Indian government, I work within the national security apparatus as well. I deal with our foreign service quite often. They are very cognizant, and they have been pressing Rajapaksa, you've got to finish this last step. And he comes up with a number of different excuses. He needs more time. He is also very scared of his army. Sri Lanka now has an army Sri Lanka is actually the most militarized society in South Asia. It has more soldiers per capita than even Pakistan does. It has an army of over 150,000 soldiers for a country that has, only 12 million people. That's massive. So he says, if I tomorrow turn on my army and tell them, I have to demobilize this. I have to send 100,000 men and say, no jobs for you. All of them with weapons, all of them trained to fight. What will I do?
Okay, let me get Professor Muni back in this. Professor Muni,
Yeah.
what are the constraints for the Indian government to push the case for political settlement in Sri Lanka?
Well, I think
You think the Indian government hesitates in pushing ahead?
No. My feeling is that India has been pushing this issue for a very long time. In fact, the last visit of the NSA to Colombo, this point was quite clearly communicated to Rajapaksa government and all the officials there. The problem is that there are two issues on which Rajapaksa has somehow got an upper hand. One, as I mentioned to you, is the question of China. They are using China, they are allowing Chinese counterbalance, so to say, vis-a-vis India's presence. And the second is India's vulnerability on the economic relations. Today we have so much of the investment and economic stakes that we cannot allow the situation to deteriorate to say 88, 89 situation where I don't know if you remember the Ashoka Leland scooters and buses were burned down.
Yes.
Now that is a situation which we cannot afford it, and I think Rajapaksa knows it very well. Therefore, he rides roughshod on this whole issue of Tamil settlement. And as Pramit Pal said, one of the important aspect is that Rajapaksa is cultivating his Sinhala nationalist constituency much more than what his earlier leader Chandrika Kumaratunge did.
Right.
In fact, Chandrika Kumaratunge had even accepted federalism, and Rajapaksa was a part of that cabinet.
Right. Okay, Professor Muni, we need to go into a short break now. Please keep watching. We'll be back very soon. Welcome back. We are discussing the Indo-Sri Lankan relations in the context of what has happened in Tamil Nadu in the last few days and asking the question, is India-Sri Lanka relations too much Tamil-centric? Mr. Thirumaa, you wanted to say something before that.
We are
To
talking
what
about...
Mr. Muni said. No, I wanted to ask, Professor Muni has made certain very important points. You people obviously should be aware of the fact that both Pramit Pal Choudhuri and Professor Muni says that the Indian government is very well aware of it. There is no need to go into hyperactivity to bring it to their notice. The fact is that, as Professor Muni is pointing out, there are too many issues involved. The trade ties between India and Sri Lanka will not, if it gets affected, it will not only affect the Sinhalese there, it will affect the Tamils also. Okay.
There is no doubt at all. But what is the political solution for the Tamils in Sri Lanka? Lakhs together people are living still in Sri Lanka now. Lakhs together people are scattered all over the world. But the government of India is not bothering about the settlement, the political settlement of Tamils. The government of India
is exactly the point which they are trying to make, that your assessment that the government of India is not bothered is not correct.
It's not bothering. Because
you think they are not bothered?
Every day the Tamil fishermen are attacking by the Sinhalese, and every day the people are suffering by doing atrocities by the military.
No, but you accept the fact that any deterioration in the relations between India and Sri Lanka and reaching the 88 stage, as Professor Muni says, will harm
the government of India is
Tamil Nadu interests also.
Yeah, they are not bothering about the Tamil Nadu interests, Tamil's interest. They are worrying about the Indo-Sri Lanka relations only. Always they are talking about the Indo-Sri Lanka relations and the economical relations and political relations, but they are not bothering about the Tamils. We are also ethnic group of India. We are Indians, but they are not bothering about our voice. One point I want to indicate: I am member of Parliament. I went to Sri Lanka last 1 year back to attend a funeral function of Miss Parvati Ammal, mother of Prabhakaran. The government of Sri Lanka blocked me in the airport itself. They went back to Tamil Nadu. What is the difference between the happening in pilgrims issue in Tanjore and in my problem? They are doing the same. They blocked me. I am member of parliament. I am member of parliament.
You have to take
They
it into
blocked me.
consideration.
They
The
didn't
government
allow
is
me.
doing there. Here it is only a mob fury. Here it is only a mob fury, but the government is
Very
the government is doing there.
very
That you have-
actively encouraged by the government.
Do you
They
think
are
Tamil
that-
Nadu.
not encouraged by the there it is done by the government itself.
Colombo,
Right,
Colombo
but here
airport.
what has happened is
Colombo
actually encouraged
airport.
by the government.
How can you say that? It is only a mob fury.
So
It is
you
only
think
a
it's a
mob
mob
fury.
fury?
Emotional
It is only-
behavior.
yeah, it is only
How
a
long
mob
they
fury
are
because-
tolerating these things?
Ajay,
Say
okay.
1 minute. You said that the government of India is taking proper care of it. 2 years
they have-
before,
they have taken note of
let,
the-
let me say now.
They know everything.
2 years
The
before,
government
in the
of India is
president
well
address, it was there that they are going to allot 1,000 crores of rupees for the rehabilitation of Tamils. And in the past, after that, in the past 2 years, there is not even a mention about that money, whatever has been given to the Sri Lankan government, whether it has really reached them, whether they have really constructed the houses promised, and whether it has been given to the dislocated Tamil people or not. Actually, it has been taken by the Sinhalese themselves or the militaries.
That is your
Wait,
suspicion.
not
that
it is
is
a
a real
suspicion.
thing,
It is the report. It is the report given by the other nations and the UN nation. It is not. But then, if it is so, the government has to send a delegation and find out that it is properly utilized. That is our concern. Now,
Pramit?
1 minute, sir.
Yes.
Just let me add one more thing. You are telling that the government is he is telling that we both are from Tamil Nadu, okay? And you have to understand our feeling. This is what we have been telling right from the beginning. If the government is behaving, if the government's approach is proper, why should we halt the whole house? The working of the house for 2 days to make India sign in the Geneva resolution.
Pramit.
They did not do it on their own.
Pramit, they're not-
For the
her-
first
her-
time,
her
and
point
again,
is that, you know,
again, sir,
this 1,000
1 minute,
crores-
sir, just
No,
one
wait,
more
wait,
minute,
wait.
let me finish. Again, when we met the Prime Minister a few days before about this fisherman issue, 2-3 days back, he's telling for the first time in the history of India, we have signed in the resolution of Geneva because of you insisting on it.
Okay.
Ah,
So that-
and
that-
if
there
we
is a
don't
positive
do it,
response.
if we don't do it, even for the small things,
Okay.
if we
Pramit.
don't do it, government is not responding.
Okay, Pramit, her
We are-
her point about
one more point, just one more point,
I'll
just
come-
one more
no, no,
point.
I'll come back.
Just
to-
one more
no,
point.
No, I'll come back.
No,
to
no, just
Pramit,
one
no,
more
I'll
point.
come back to Pramit.
You said Tamils, this will deteriorate the Tamils issue
Absolutely.
over there. It has been done. It cannot further deteriorate.
It can, okay, that, Pramit.
It cannot further
Pramit,
deteriorate.
One of the points which she has raised is about the 1,000 crores rehabilitation package given there, and it has not been, has Indian government followed up on that?
Well, I know that I think last month or 6 weeks ago, the foreign ministry did issue a press statement saying the number of buildings that had been, in their view, made with that type of money. They admitted that the progress was slow and that they wanted to accelerate it, but they did have, I've forgotten how many, a few hundred buildings had been made, but they were having some problems in terms of the construction. But I remember that press statement was released. I think the bigger issue, I think that there are three things that have been raised here. One, I agree with them that the Rajapaksa government is not moving forward on the political settlement. And I think one of the reasons why, as I said, there are domestic compulsions for Rajapaksa, but he also believes at present that if you look at the state of our present government in New Delhi, that they don't need to worry, because the New Delhi Indian government is now almost paralyzed, is incapable of almost doing anything domestically, let alone externally. And this is not only Sri Lanka, this is true of a lot of countries around the world. Second, I would disagree with them slightly on the issue of the fishermen. Because you have to realize that a lot of the attacks, besides there have been attacks with the Sri Lankan Navy on Indian Tamils, but there are also Sri Lankan Tamils fighting Indian Tamil fishermen. When I've talked to people in that area, they say one of the interesting results is that the Pak Straits, because for years of the civil war, this area has never been fished. For almost 15 years, for fishermen now, this is like gold. There are lobsters this size. There's huge amounts of fish. So you're seeing a lot of attacks now between Indian and Sri Lankan
and
fishermen.
it has nothing to do with the ethnic issue there.
Well,
it's just a question of who gets more.
Yeah. And what is happening though, we do have
I
evidence
don't
of
agree with his point.
Sri Lankan Navy getting involved, but our impression is that it's not the government of Sri Lanka that's ordering. It is the Sri Lankan Navy on its own for financial and commercial reasons. That doesn't mean that that excuses the Sri Lankan Navy, but I'm just saying that it's a little more complicated than just a Tamil Sinhalese issue. The third issue on China, this I can argue that the Indian government actually is not too worried about. The Chinese development of Habintota, which is something that the Sri Lankan government has been trying to play with India for a while. The Indian government said, go ahead, we don't care. Because this is not a commercially viable port. And if the Chinese want to waste $500 million building it, that's up to them.
Okay.
The Indian Tamils and Sri Lankan Tamils
Professor Muni, one of the issues which we're not really touched in this discussion is about the training of military officers of Sri Lanka. Is it something which is what has happened because of which the training camp had to be shifted from Tamil Nadu? Is it something which has irritated the Sri Lankans, and do you think that has affected the process of has that made Rajapaksa a little more adamant?
No, on the training question, we did not sign the DCA, which was way back in say 2005, 2004. And but we promised that we will give you all kind of support.
Right.
And we have been giving this support, including military training to them, even supplies of radar, for instance.
Right.
I am surprised that why the Tamil parties did not agitate at that time.
At that time.
When the fight was going on, and
Right.
suddenly they have now woken up that you can't even have half a dozen of Sri Lankan officers to be trained in India, or particularly in Tamil Nadu.
Right.
I mean, this is totally unreasonable. This is an old practice which has been continuing, and there is nothing new in
mentioning
it.
this to the government.
Okay.
2
Every
decades
now
we are
and then,
opposing.
Okay.
Actually, the government of India is giving
Professor Muni,
training.
very quickly, what is the solution to this problem? How do you think the Indian government should now take up these matters and force the Sri Lankan government to find a political settlement to the problem?
No, my submission is that India has been trying. Even the Geneva vote was a very clear message to Colombo that we don't like the way you are dealing with the Tamil issue.
So that means that but the Indian government can only go so far and no further. Is that what?
Yeah, but I said there are 2 constraints which have now been put on the Indian government.
Okay.
One is the economic constraint, another one is a strategic one.
Absolutely. So okay, we are completely running out of time. Last words to you.
The government of India is giving training to Sri Lankan military people to kill Tamils. Is it correct?
No.
Why the government of India is giving training?
There is a...
We have lost many lives of our kids.
We don't know whether it is they are being trained to kill people anyway. They must have been trained earlier by Sri Lankan themselves to kill. I don't think we need to train them to kill.
Opposing for the 2 decades.
Anyway, your point is well taken. This is an issue which, as Professor Muni right from the beginning said, that is a very emotional issue, but this needs to be tackled more carefully, which the Indian government needs to apply its mind to. Thanks to all my guests. Thank you, Professor Muni, Mr. Thirumaa Valavan, Vasanthi Stanley, and Pramit Choudhuri. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue on the big picture, same time tomorrow.